been working in the education space for about 25 years as a teacher, actually in China as well as in the US, in the elementary, middle, and college level. And then for 20 years, as Colleen mentioned, I've been working, I founded and then created and built up a website called Great Schools. And actually, Colleen, could you go to the homepage of Great Schools?
Yep.
Because I want you all to know about that resource. If you're in school choosing mode, we'll show you when he gets there. You can put in your address, and when you put in your address, you basically get a list of schools sorted by distance from your home. And you can then filter them by various things. So you want to do it? You want to put in your address or somebody's address or this address, whatever. And then when you sort, you see, or when you initially do that, you probably have to put, yeah, here we go. So this is it'll tell you your assigned school, at least the tentative assigned school. And then basically it's going to sort them. And actually, if you hit the refine search here, Colleen.
Yep.
Sorry, we're just doing this on the fly. We didn't plan this, but it's easy to do. So let's just only look at elementary schools. You click down there, and then submit. So now we're just looking at elementaries, and you see Lincoln is the assigned one. And then as you scroll further down here are the rest of them. And I think we're actually sorting them by grade school's rating right here. We could go up and sort them by distance. The rating is a mostly test score analysis-based rating, which tells you something about both how well students are doing on state tests, as well as how much they're growing from year to year. And that's important. So it's not just how many students are doing really well, but it's how much from year to year they are learning as measured by the test. So we might come back to this depending on where we want to take this. That's my, and then, okay, so then a year and a half ago, or a year ago, I founded a new company. I left Great Schools a few years ago, and I'm starting a new company called Raise Ready Kids. And probably some of you have been to, or coaches of some sort. Well, obviously you have sports coaches, but there's some people do nutrition coaching, or they help people out with, spiritual matters, or wellness, fitness. I'm becoming a education coach for parents who want to raise kids who can fly away, be awesome, be set up for a fulfilling and productive life. And the way I think about this is, as parents, our role is to do the best we can to raise our children so that they have a lot of choices. Some kids are going to go this way, some kids are going to go that way, different, and that's as it should be. It's not our role as parents to determine whether our kids go to some very high level educational route and become PhDs, or whether they go a route that requires much less education and it's a different kind of life. And it's not our role. Our role is to help them, when they're 18 years old, have that choice so that they can follow their own dreams and passions, and that no decisions that we made or no systemic failures will prevent them from having that wide kind of choice of who they want to be. So let me just stop here and see if there's any questions about, I don't expect there are, but any questions about me and what I do. Okay, good. So what I want to do before going further is ask any of you who are in choosing mode, so this school, other schools, if you have particular questions about anything related that are on your mind, so I can make sure that I touch on those this evening. Any questions? All right. So if you go back to the presentation.
I'm sorry, I thought of one question.
Yes.
Are there any other criteria that you include, that are included in grade schools?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, let's before we go, let's just do the grade schools demo then. Can you go back to? Thank you. So, do you want to look at Lincoln Elementary School, which is very close to here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's right across the street.
Click on it. All right. So you just do not right now. We don't need to take the tour right here. Okay. So The rating for Lincoln, there's a lot you can learn on grade schools, and I highly encourage you to do it. And if we work together, and I'll explain later how I work with parents, part of what I'll do is teach you how to use grade schools, because you can learn so much. So, but we'll do a little bit right now. So the overall rating is 4 out of 10, and Kaleem, if you hover over this 4, we'll see that the rating is based on 3 factors. Just the pure test scores, what we call the equity overview, which I'll explain in a minute, and the student progress. Lincoln Elementary School, overall, the student test scores aren't, they're 3 out of 10. 10 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. So 3, on the lower side. Equity basically means that the gaps between the high-performing students and the low-performing students, whether that be based on income or race and ethnicity, or students with disabilities, or English language learners. There's 4 kinds of gaps that we're analyzing, that those gaps are very large, right, at this school. And then you see the student progress. Well, this is good news. Students at this school are making more progress in a year than at many schools. And this is going to be based, for an elementary, at K-5, on testing that's done in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So you can see all those things here. So now let's, Kaleem, if you click off this little thing here, and let's go down to where it says equity overview. Actually, where it says race, ethnicity. Let's do that. Okay, so now we can see that Lincoln has enough students. We're looking at the data part, and I'm going to show you some of the, there's parent reviews too that we'll see in a minute. Has these different groups that are reported, and there's obviously very large differences. And we can make this real by, let's click on math right here. So what you're seeing is the average for all students is that 25% are proficient according to Wisconsin state standards. Basically what that means is they're on grade level. And the good news is in Wisconsin, we have a standard that's pretty high. So that being proficient on the Wisconsin state test, that's saying something. Like there's some states where if you're proficient, it's like a grade level below, right? But Wisconsin is not messing with you there. You can trust that. But then as we look across the groups, we see these huge differences. This school is actually one of the most extreme that I've seen. I spoke last night to a group of folks, and I'll repeat it here. I know a few of you were there, so bear with me. In general, and I think you probably know that, Wisconsin as a state and Dane County as a county and Madison as a city has very large gaps in the educational achievement of different groups of students. So African American students do pretty poor, the gap between how African American students and white students are doing is very large here. And that's, one thing that inspires me about One City is the holistic approach to changing that, and together, right? Not something that's separate just for one group, but for everybody, and that's building that rich learning environment that is there's all of the parts that help a brain grow and help a child thrive and be able to be proficient, because that proficiency is built on a lot of legs, and so we can come back and talk more about that. But you see these big gaps here. Now let's keep scrolling down, if you would, all the way down to, you see the gap in income as well. Let's just keep going, because I don't really want to look at all of this. But you do see, let's keep going, actually let's keep going down. This tells you what the race and ethnic breakdown of the school is. Students learning English, quite a few, from low-income families. The gender breakdown, a little bit about the teachers. You see the percent of, that there's quite a few teachers around school, 12 to 1, with 3 or more years of teaching experience. And you always see the state average next to all these numbers, so you can get a sense of how it compares. And then the percent of teachers who are certified. And now let's scroll down here, and we see there's not a lot of reviews on this school. And let's see how recent they are. That can be an issue. Yes, this one is very recent. So click on more here, and you'll see this is the kind of you learn the most from the positive, the people who tend to leave reviews, if you've used Yelp or other services like that, are people who are either really happy with an organization or really not happy. So this person is clearly is very happy. And do we see anybody who's not happy that's more recent? Yeah, this is actually also recent too. And this is, these are great stories. And this is a really positive sign, I would say, about the school. But it's only a few stories. And then you have to think about the data and what the data all means as well. So scroll down and see if there are any negative ones. This is really old and less relevant. I think all those are older, and I wouldn't put much stock in anything older than 3 or 4 years old, because schools change. So that's a tour of grade schools. It's a wonderful resource for as you're thinking about what school might be best for your child. Any questions on that?
And how's the information obtained, or you just,
Yeah. So all of the data comes from the states.
and you just collaborate?
So what the states don't do well is present it in a way that makes it easy.
I see.
It's there. I mean, you can actually go, as a
Yes,
school board member,
yeah.
I'm sure you've been to the DPI's
Yeah.
website and you've gotten their various PDF reports, and you can, if you want to take some serious time, you can
Right.
get all of this information, all the data I just showed. But this makes it really graphical and easy, and then we put the rating on it, and then you can even see nearby homes and we work in rental, both purchase and rental, into the school attendance zone. That's also a feature of grade schools. Grade schools also, by the way, has tons of, if you scroll all the way back to the top, Colleen, tons of, tons of articles. So these are, and there's a podcast, but you can go, if you click on parenting right here, you'll see a lot of articles that are kind of at that intersection of education and parenting, learning and parenting, and tons of resources for if you scroll around there and check it out. Any other questions on grade schools? Good. So if you go to the presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip over. I'm just going to hit some of these slides, not all of them, as we're going through here. So again, my goal at Raise Ready Kids, raise a kid who's set up for a fulfilling and productive life. Thank you. And that, what direction that takes will be their choice. Your job is to give them that opportunity to make the choice, to have the choice. And I don't have to tell you this, you already know. The way the world works today is education is opportunity. When you get a good education, you have so much more opportunity. And what I'm going to do is think about this in terms of the academic, and I'll show you the other one, and I'll come back to each of these, kind of personal and social emotional milestones, as well as academic milestones. So if you want to be here and be able to choose most any direction, you need to graduate from high school with a 3.0 and an ACT. Is ACT widely used around here? Yeah, and there's SAT. My daughter took ACT as well, so that's what I'm using here, and a 21 plus ACT. And basically, when you're meeting the Wisconsin state standards on those standards, when you're proficient, it's pretty much what you should be on track for that. And so working back from, and then you do need very likely some future education. It does not need to be. I mean, there are folks like Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation says everybody should go to college. I disagree. Not everybody should go to college. You might, and that's kind of the point I was making before. Your child should be able to choose to go to college if they want to. But some kids are just more oriented towards working with their hands. I have a daughter, a son of a good friend of mine who actually lives in Milwaukee, came to UW here, left most of the way after freshman, partway through freshman year, went into a carpentry trade apprentice program, loves it, and 3 to 4 years from now he's going to be making $70,000, $80,000. right? There is nothing wrong with that. And as parents, our job isn't to say you must go this way or you must go that way, for that matter. There are other stories I know of, dads you see sometimes won't let their daughters go to college. They got accepted to some amazing university that's 300 or 1,000 miles away. That is also not okay, in my view. You need to let your child free when they're 18, and you need to set them up so they'll have a lot of choices. Is it all making sense? Yeah. So, what are some of the academic milestones here? And please let me know if this is too basic or simple. But I think, some parents know this, some don't. Is working backwards. This is, it's not that you're going to use algebra every day in your life. I mean, raise your hand if you use algebra all day. Right, very few of us do. But this is a kind of symbolic thinking, a capacity for symbolic thinking. X stands for something. And it's a way of understanding the world through numbers and relationships and ratios that is essential for many professions. Carpentry too, right? Even without that 4-year degree. The ratios and being really fluent with that. So being able to, that's an academic milestone that represents, and 8th grade is ideal. 9th grade works for some kids for whom that's more developmentally appropriate, but striving for that by 8th grade. And getting a C or better. Ideally, of course, more like that 3.0 average. That's a key milestone. Reading well by the end of 3rd grade. Why is that so important? Because the time the children's brains are developing that enables them to read well is already ending by 3rd grade. So that's kind of scary, right? But it's true. We need to have schools and home environments that support children getting that rich instruction and high quality instruction and that rich literacy environment so that they're reading well by the end of 3rd grade. Because it's not as though the window shuts completely, but it gets narrower and harder to learn to read well. And then, I'm thinking here of one city, and without its kindergarten, but really we can think about that in terms of, it got tired. But being ready for kindergarten. And that's a combination of social emotional skills and some kind of prototypical academic skills. We could talk more about that. I already talked about it, I guess I got this here. Yes, I wanted to talk quickly about some personal or social emotional milestones. They are no less important. And when we parents think about this, we realize this, that having good, we want our children to fly away and not only be able to get a job and support themselves and have a good career, but we also want them to be fulfilled and to have good relationships and to be contributing members of their community. And what I've done here is describe a little bit of what I see as the types of skills that build on each other that enable a kid to be in that position when they're 18 years old. Health and safety obviously comes first. I didn't put unconditional love here, a feeling of love, but I think we all know that. It's worth repeating, that knowing that you're being healthy, being safe and emotional as well as a physical sense. Executive function is the capacity to pay attention, to direct attention. It's a really critical skill that enables us to perform in any aspects. I mean, there's other aspects of it too, but it's largely being able to pay attention and focus on something. Social and emotional skills, being able to read another person's face. Do you know that there's really interesting tests done of people's capacity to read other people's faces and emotions and relating that to their success in the workplace? Because how many of you know people who got fired from a job? Raise your hand. Yep. How often does it relate to their ability to work well with others or to form strong relationships with others? Right? It's absolutely critical. Being able to persist. You're learning you're learning the subject matter that you're learning in school. But for example, when you learn algebra and you hit a rough bump, you're learning how to persist and how to keep going when the going is hard. Curiosity. And that's one thing I love about this school is if you're absorbing the value of asking questions and wondering about the world around you, that's a gift for a lifetime. And then ultimately a sense of purpose. Again, when you're 18, you don't probably have some deep life purpose figured out, and some of us never do. But if you have little inklings of things you care about and commitments you're making. So this is, I give you all this background because it's really important to get beyond things like test score ratings and what you hear about a school, and think fundamentally about what matters to your child's future. And by the way, for anybody who put their email address down on the sign-in form today, I will send you a link to this so that you can have it or share it with others as you'd like. And if you didn't put your email down, then find me afterwards, or find somebody, and we'll get your email, and I'll send it to you. All right. So we don't need to talk about this. These are just these are all people I know, or some of them are photos of people. This is my friend Heather Hiles, who was just on the cover of, what was it, Vanity Fair maybe, as one of the 25 young black entrepreneurs in America who was making a difference. And she, whether you're going to be a carpenter, or whether you're going to be an entrepreneur like my friend Heather, or whether you're going to go into the medical profession, and many other professions you can go, you need those skills. It's not as though today you can, be doing poorly in school and be not that interested in it, and then be successful in any of those kinds of middle class professions. So, we talked about this early. This is what the numbers show. And this is what I know One Purpose is trying to change. Now, by the time kids are 25, 30, I think you see this is a little bit higher than this in terms of people can end up finding their way, clawing their way back. But I know the goal for all of us parents is our children are on a track so that when they're 18, they've got choices and they feel like they can participate and access society. So I want to talk about the kinds of school. Two more parts, and I'll try to finish this up in 10 minutes. Does that work for everybody? 10 more minutes? Okay. So there are two more parts to this presentation. One is, what are literally the types of schools that you can choose in Madison, or the ways you can choose schooling? And the second is, what are some key things to look for? And I'm not going to go in depth on what to look for, because I work with parents individually and in groups on that, and help you prepare for a school tour, help you read the data better, and I'll introduce that at the end of the presentation of how I do that. You can go to your assigned district school, and that you probably know what it is, and that's easy. That's the default for a very large number of people. You can go to another district school. You can put in a petition. Now, Kaleem, if I'm right, that window is just closed.
Correct.
For next year in MMSD. But from a window from February through April, I believe, you can put in a request for a different district school. You have to redo that when you get to the middle school. If you're going elementary, middle, high, to redo it each time. But once you're into that school through the end of that schooling. 3, you can transfer, or you can move to another district. So when people talk about school choosing in America, this moving part of it is done about 25% of families with school-age children say they live where they live, primarily, not necessarily exclusively, but primarily because of the schools. So there's a lot of choosing that's going on by moving. But you can also access a state program which lets you enroll your child into a nearby school district. There's no guarantee of it being approved. That window actually opens up in a few days in early May and closes in late May. That is not guaranteed also. You may or may not get approved. Some nearby towns have spaces, some have less. So that's a third option. 4th is you can go to private school. So private school, there are 30,000 kids in MMSD, and there are 5,000 in Madison in private schools. And I told this to a friend who's been here for like 20 years, and he said, "What? I don't know any of those private school kids." But there are, I don't know if you guys do, but there are 5,000 kids in private schools in Madison. Now you might first say to yourself, well, there's no way I can afford that. And you might be right. But there are some ways for some people, and it's not, again, gonna work for most people who have very, very few funds. But there's one voucher school that takes vouchers given that are income tested, I believe, in with the statewide voucher program, and that's called Lighthouse Christian, right? Did I say that right, Colleen? Yep. And then there are some of the private schools that will work with families on a kind of sliding tuition scale. There tend to be religious schools, Catholic schools probably, maybe others as well. So don't assume that you definitely can't pay for it. If you want that kind of education for your child, there's Lighthouse. If you're less religiously inclined, one of the options that I don't know much about, but I know is one of those high-end independent schools is Madison Country Day, and they are looking for a diverse range of students, and it's possible sometimes to get a very good scholarship there. Again, won't work for most families who apply, but it'll work for some. So that's private schools. And then new charter schools. So one city. And then there's something called Isthmus Montessori, which is opening in the fall of 2018. These two are the first two charter schools. One city's kindergarten program, full kindergarten program, and Isthmus Montessori are the first true charter elementary schools. Now there's some charter high school, is that right? So there are options in the city, but those options become available next year. So any questions on, so this is just designed to talk to you about the kind of mechanical ways, the pathways that you have to choose schools in Madison. Any questions about any of these? Yes?
Do you happen to know how many people or how many kids are homeschooled?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I know that the number nationally is 3%,
Okay.
but I don't know for Madison or Dane County. Does anybody know? But it's out there, and there's some great resources for that, and there's what I find is I've gotten to know some homeschooling families. If you are gung ho and you have the resources in your family, because you've got to be the teacher, right? So that means you're not working. Then if you you have enough education yourself and you have enough passion for it, it can be a fantastic education for kids. That does not describe most families, right? So, and what I see sometimes turns into a disaster is a homeschool, well, mom's going to do some of it, grandma's going to do some of it, the kids don't work. And that's not what you don't want that. And many families will then pull out of that situation.
And we do have the Wisconsin Virtual Academy. It's a statewide charter school that actually is run by the school district of McFarland. And it's the back office is K-12.
Oh, yeah, right.
So
And that
it's a homeschool curriculum that's accessible for free.
Right, but you have to pair that with this situation I was describing, where a parent, or there could be a little collaborative of a couple parents and families. I don't know how that works in Wisconsin, but I know that happens in California. But you need to be really careful about that.
So do like play groups and things like that to make sure they're socializing?
Well, no, they
or
actually
yeah.
share. There's a couple of families
You
that
teach
share
science, also
exactly,
math, got
exactly.
it.
So you end up with
Interesting.
6 kids together, maybe rather than 2 or what have you. And
I realize that's not your focus, and I am just curious if you happen to know, because I've always wondered.
yeah,
about that.
but if you connect with me afterwards, I can connect you with some resources that
Okay.
tell all about homeschooling.
This does less than 2% in Dane County homeschool.
Less than 2%.
Places like our Nature Center do programming for homeschool kids. We have groups that are 5 and 6-year-olds. I think we go to 9-year-olds, but we have 2 different age groups primarily. But they're only coming once a week, and they do then get to socialize with each other. And people are homeschooling for all different reasons. Sometimes it's a student who just doesn't fit well
Right.
in the classroom, and other times it's what else the parents want. But there's definitely a lot around Dane County to support families who are doing it. There'll be I don't know when it happens, but there's a group that has sort of an exhibition where they put all their programming in one place. I'll look for it. I went to Friends
Oh yes, there are little conventions or type things for
I went to
homeschool.
just representing Nature Center, but I don't
Yeah.
know what it says.
And then there's something called the unschooling movement, which you may have heard of, which is not even an organized homeschool day, but more just like guiding your child through a whole set of experiences out in the world. I don't recommend that unless you really know what you're doing. Like if you were a former teacher and you can weave in lots of instruction to the natural course of the day, kind of informally, then you could do that. But unless you've had that background, I wouldn't do that. Okay, so, oh, is this working? It's not responding now. Oh, there it is. So we already talked about all this, so we're going to go. Now I want to talk to you. Final section here is what, in my view, after 20 years of experience, how do you evaluate a school? What do you think about? And I'm going to reduce it to really simple. There are many other things that you can talk about, and I'm also not going to talk about things like how close the school is to you and whether you can afford it. Those are the practical things that I bet you're already thinking about, if it was a private school, for example. But I'm going to talk about program, teachers, and culture. Notice I didn't put facility here because a long line of research shows that while facility is important, it is not as important as these factors. And great teachers with a great program and a strong culture can overcome a mediocre facility. You don't want a terrible facility. And a nice facility is great, but it's not the most important thing. And there's some other things that, like how much is spent per child, that ultimately isn't all that important to you as a parent. What you want to know is the quality of the experiences that your child has. And I divide this into program, teachers, and culture. So let's talk about program for a minute. It's literally, I think, a good way of thinking about it is the experiences your child will have. So what is curriculum? It's the plan for teaching, and it's the teaching and learning plan. And that is the core, especially as your child gets older and into formal schooling, the core of the program. So, I can't get into tonight about a lot of details about curriculum, and there's a lot of philosophies about it, but the curriculum, the enrichment. So when I hear you talking about the athletics, the arts, the building that's going on, the creativity that's going on, critical. So that your child is, again, it's the experiences they're having when they exercise their artistic, when they develop their artistic skills and create and collaborate with others to create. Those are the skills. That is not a sideshow from the skills they're going to need to be, remember we put curious, persistent, curious, social emotional skills, which comes into the communication that is involved in art. We had persistence, you got to keep going until it looks good. We had curiosity, and eventually purpose. Art is an integral way of training for those things and developing the mind and the physical capacity of the body to be that way. So I would ask a lot of questions again in my coaching work. We go deeper in this, like how do you really find out about a program and how do you evaluate it? Especially in curriculum, because it's not easy for parents to know. Teachers, you know this for the most part, great teachers work magic. They, on the one hand, understand a lot about the content they're teaching, so they know, in the younger grades, it's like how children learn. It's the process of learning to read, simultaneously with they're great at building relationships. One of my favorite quotes about learning and education is, you work for people you love, right? You work for people you love. If you don't love them, and if there's not a close relationship between you and the teacher, then, when you're in kindergarten, maybe it's not so much of an issue. But boy, those of us with middle schoolers know that it matters a lot by that age, right? You work for people you love. And if those teachers, on the one hand, it's got to be a both and. There are one of my mantras is nice is not enough. You walk into a school and you see really nice teachers, and you want nice teachers. You want nice front office. You want nice, but they also have to really know their stuff. They have to know how children develop and how to reach and engage kids who are a little ahead, who are a little behind, who learn a little more this way, learn a little more that way. And again, I'm not going to get into tonight how you can tell whether the teachers are this way. That's something I do with my coaching practice. I get to click. Culture. Those of you last night were there, heard this definition from me. My favorite definition of the word culture is the way we do things around here. So, you can read much more technical. You can get much more technical about it. but I like that very simple definition, the way we do things around here. Do we seek to understand others before demanding that we be understood? Do we listen to each other closely, whether there's a age difference of 30 years or 2 years? Do we push each other and get aggressive when we start to disagree with each other, or do we sit down and work it out together? So these are all the ways, and then when you get into the academic and kind of intellectual aspects of it, do we ask a lot of questions? Do we keep asking questions once we've got the first question answered? Because that's what we do. So culture is so important because your child is learning through the formal education, the teaching, but they're learning through the way, what's happening to them every day. It always makes me laugh when I hear teachers say, oh, we're implementing a social and emotional curriculum at our school this year. And I say, teachers, you've had a social and emotional curriculum at your school all along. It's just that maybe you weren't thinking about it, right? Because the kids are always learning about from the way the adults treat each other, how the adults treat the kids, all that. And so you want to choose a culture where, imagine you were that age. Would you want to be there? Is it uplifting to you? Is it the way you want to be? Does it sort of embody the values that you want to have your kid in their bones as they're growing up and becoming, moving into adulthood? So that there are ways to assess that. I think we're out of time tonight. If you want to talk about any of these strategies tonight, let me know. Given the hour, I think I'll just move. I already showed you this example. I'll just quickly mention that when you're networking, a lot of word of mouth is so important in learning about schools. Pay attention to whom you're talking to, though. The more you can talk to people with direct knowledge. There is this problem in schools that they get these reputations. Well, this school is no good because da-da-da. Well, that's because, Aunt Irma told Uncle Joe told your friend Susie that that's true. But that's not actually true, right? And if you went to the school, if you dug deeper, it would not be true. But if you talk to somebody who is a teacher in that building, or the husband of somebody who's a teacher in that building, then you're getting much more direct information, and that's where you want to rely on, and less on that kind of vague general reputation. Visiting, there's a website, there's a video that kind of gives a little bit of a preliminary demonstration of some techniques that I use when I visit a school. I'll tell you one of my favorite techniques for middle schools in a more dense urban area. When I want to know about a middle school in a city, I go to a corner store or some nearby commercial place where the kids would come in. The corner store is a good one because they come in for snacks. And I say, tell me about what the kids are like at the school. And then you just get an unvarnished view of how they behave, right? And you can get amazing positive stories, you get really negative stories. So there are various tricks to get at program, teaching quality, and culture that I go through in my coaching work. And this video shows some of them. And if I'll put this actually is a link to the video. So if I have your email address, you'll get these slides and you can link through and look at that video. So I want to mention next steps if you'd like these. So I am starting the coaching business. I'm charging $395 for families in the San Francisco Bay Area for me to work with them to think about their educational values, think about their kid, create a list of potential schools, prepare them for tours, talk to them about what they're learning, help them if they're applying to private school to write the application. If it's in public school, understand all the bureaucratic stuff they've got to do, keep them on track, and then help them make a final decision if they have one. I will do this for anybody affiliated with one city for $10 if you want to do that. And the reason I'll do that is I don't have experience doing this far from my home, San Francisco, and I want to figure out a way of doing it. And so you're going to have whatever questions you're going to have, and I'm going to want to run around and answer them for you and help you out. But if you sign up, I will do. All I need is $10, and all that tells me is that you think it's worth $10 of your treasure, and you wanna do it, right? So, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And it's gonna, be most ideal if there were a total of 10, I don't think there would be tonight, but if there were 10 over the next month or two that wanted to sign up, or even into early next fall, because we could do this for the following year, is really when, because when you have time to think about it, is the best. And this is what I mentioned, this is what I do. You can see all of this on the website. And Kaleem, if you just click on this, I'm gonna show you, this is the website, the portion of this is Raise Ready Kids. It's this very simple website. It's got a bunch of articles on it that, it's got a newsletter if you wanna sign up for that. And this is the coaching program. And if you scroll down a little bit on this, if you wanna enroll, I explain what I do here. And if you click on that button on raisereadykids.com/coaching, then you can enroll. You choose one city so that the price changes from $395 to $10. And yeah, right there, you say, I heard about this in an event at my child's preschool or a preschool. And then you choose that one, and now if you scroll down, you'll see the price is $10. It was $395. So I can only do this for this year, go through this sort of cycle of choosing. But it would be a pleasure to work with you all, and I'd learn a lot and hopefully help you a lot. Anybody who wants to do that.